Have you ever heard of a family so unbelievably large that most people refuse to believe it ever existed? Imagine walking into a home where dozens of children are running around, laughing, playing, and calling the same woman mother. It sounds like something from a movie or an ancient legend. But according to historical records, one woman may
How
have
many babies can
achieved
a
what
woman give
many
birth to
people
in her
consider
lifetime?
the most
10, 20,
astonishing
or even
childbirth
44
record
like
in
Mariam
human
never tested for
history.
Uganda?
Some
No,
reports
what
claim
if
she
I told
gave
you that
birth
in
to
the
an
Democratic
incredible
Republic of Congo,
asterisk
in the town of
69
Goma,
children
there is a
during her
woman who gave
lifetime.
birth to 53
Even
children?
today, that number leaves doctors, historians, and ordinary people speechless. But was this truly possible, or has history exaggerated the story over the centuries? Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and controversial stories ever recorded. Before we begin, remember that this story comes from records dating back hundreds of years. While it has been recognized by Guinness World Records as the most prolific mother in history based on those historical sources, many modern historians point out that records from that era can be difficult to verify with complete certainty. So, as you watch, keep an open mind and decide for yourself what you believe. Our story begins in 18th century Russia, a time when life was far different from the modern world. There were no hospitals with advanced technology, no ultrasound scans, and no modern medicine to help mothers through difficult pregnancies. Families often lived by farming the land, surviving harsh winters, and working from sunrise until sunset. Children were considered a blessing because they helped support the family and continue the family name. However, infant mortality was also much higher than it is today, making every successful birth a remarkable event. In this challenging world lived a peasant woman known as Valentina Vasilyeva. She was married to a farmer named Fyodor Vasilyev. At first glance, they appeared to be an ordinary couple living a simple rural life. No one could have imagined that their family would one day become one of the most talked about families in history. According to historical accounts, Valentina experienced pregnancy after pregnancy throughout much of her adult life. But what makes her story extraordinary isn't simply the number of pregnancies. It's what happened during those pregnancies. Instead of giving birth to one baby at a time, many of her pregnancies reportedly resulted in multiple births. Historical records suggest she gave birth to twins again and again. Some pregnancies reportedly result in triplets, while others produced quadruplets. If these reports are accurate, it would mean her body accomplished something so rare that even modern medicine considers it highly unusual. Imagine the excitement and the fear each time another pregnancy began. Every childbirth in the 1700s carried significant risks for both mother and babies. There were no emergency surgeries, no neonatal intensive care units, and no advanced monitoring equipment. Families relied on local midwives, traditional knowledge, and hope. Yet according to the historical records, Valentina survived an astonishing number of pregnancies. That's one of the reasons her story continues to fascinate medical experts today. They wonder how a woman living centuries ago could endure so many pregnancies and deliveries under such difficult conditions. The reported numbers are almost impossible to imagine. Historical documents claim she experienced 27 pregnancies in total. Those pregnancies are said to have included 16 sets of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets. When those figures are added together, they total 69 children. Even reading those numbers feels unreal. Most people today know someone with twins and might consider that extraordinary. Triplets are much rarer, while quadruplets are exceptionally uncommon. To experience all three types of multiple births repeatedly during one lifetime would be almost beyond comprehension. Naturally, stories like this raise many questions. Could one woman really carry so many multiple pregnancies? Could so many babies survive in an era with limited medical care? And how accurate were the records kept hundreds of years ago? Those questions have sparked debate among historians for decades. Some researchers believe the records deserve attention because they were documented in official historical sources and late referenced by organizations such as Guinness World Records. Others argue that record-keeping in the 1700s wasn't always as precise as modern documentation, making complete verification difficult. Regardless of where the truth ultimately lies, the story has become one of history's most enduring mysteries. It reminds us how easily remarkable events can blur the line between documented history and legend. Beyond the astonishing numbers lies another fascinating thought. Raising even 2 or 3 children requires enormous patience, energy, and sacrifice. Now imagine caring for dozens of children in a farming community hundreds of years ago. Every day would have involved preparing food, making clothing, teaching life skills, and ensuring everyone survived harsh seasons. The workload would have been almost unimaginable. Picture the family gathering for meals, the sound of children's voices filling the home, the endless chores, the celebrations when another healthy child was born, and the constant determination needed to keep such a massive household functioning. Whether every reported detail is perfectly accurate or not, one thing is certain. This story has captured the world's imagination for generations. It continues to inspire documentaries, books, articles, and discussions because it challenges what we think is humanly possible. But the biggest surprises are still ahead. In the next part, we'll explore exactly how these remarkable pregnancies were said to happen, why multiple births fascinated doctors and historians alike, and what modern science says about the incredible biological odds behind this extraordinary family story. The answers may surprise you more than the record itself. If the historical accounts are accurate, the life of Valentina Vassilieva was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Imagine discovering that another pregnancy had begun, knowing there was a good chance more than one baby would be born. For most women, having twins is already an unforgettable experience. But according to the centuries-old reports, multiple births became almost a pattern in Valentina's life. Each pregnancy would have brought both excitement and uncertainty. In the 1700s, childbirth was one of the greatest dangers a woman could face. There were no prenatal scans, no specialists monitoring the babies, and no emergency operating rooms. Families relied on experienced midwives, homemade remedies, and hope that everything would go well. As the month passed, people in the village may have noticed that Valentina often appeared to be carrying more than one child. Without modern medical technology, no one could know for certain until the day of delivery arrived. Every birth would have been filled with suspense. According to the historical records, the first remarkable event was the repeated arrival of twins. Once could be considered a miracle, twice would already be unusual. But over the years, the reports claim she welcomed twin after twin, astonishing everyone around her. Then came an even greater surprise. Some pregnancies reportedly resulted in triplets. 3 newborn babies arriving once would have required an incredible amount of care. Feeding them, keeping them warm, and protecting them from illness would have been a full-time challenge for the entire household. Yet the reports did not stop there. The most astonishing claims involve 4 separate pregnancies that allegedly resulted in quadruplets. Even today, naturally conceived quadruplets are extremely rare. Modern medicine often treats such pregnancies as high risk because of the challenges for both the mother and the babies. Thinking about such births taking place more than 250 years ago makes the story even more extraordinary. If these records are correct, every successful delivery would have been celebrated as an incredible blessing. Neighbors would likely have traveled long distances just to witness the growing family. News of such an extraordinary household could easily have spread from village to village, eventually reaching officials and writers who documented unusual events. But bringing children into the world was only the beginning. Raising such a large family would have required discipline, teamwork, and endless hard work. Every child needed food, clothing, shelter, and guidance. In a farming community, older children often helped care for younger brothers and sisters. Daily life would have revolved around working the land, preparing meals, collecting water, tending animals, and making sure everyone contributed in some way. Think about a typical morning inside that home. Before sunrise, the adults would already be awake, preparing for another demanding day. Older children might help fetch water or gather firewood, while younger ones stayed close to their mother. Breakfast alone would have required enough food to feed what would seem like a small village. As the family grew, organization would have become essential. Every child would have had responsibilities. Some may have helped with farming, others with cooking or caring for younger siblings. Survival depended on everyone working together. Of course, life in the 18th century was never easy. Illnesses that are easily treated today could become life-threatening. Winters were harsh, harvests sometimes failed, and resources were often limited. Large families had to plan carefully to make sure there was enough food throughout the year. One of the most remarkable parts of the story is another claim found in the historical accounts. They suggest that, despite the enormous number of births, most of the children survived infancy. If true, this would have been extraordinary because infant mortality rates during that period were much higher than they are today. This detail is one of the reasons many historians continue to debate the story. Some researchers believe the survival rate described in old records seems unusually high for the time. Others argue that exceptional cases do happen, and that unusual families can sometimes leave an unforgettable mark on histories. Whether every number is perfectly accurate or not, There's no denying the incredible determination that such a family would have required. Caring for dozens of children without electricity, running water, refrigerators, or modern healthcare demanded constant effort. As years passed, stories about the Vasilyev family reportedly spread beyond their local community. Writers and officials became interested in documenting what they believed was one of the most extraordinary families in the Russian Empire. Eventually, the story reached audiences far beyond Russia, becoming one of history's most famous tales of motherhood. But there is another side to this story. The more astonishing a claim becomes, the more carefully experts examine it. Could these numbers really be correct? Is there a biological explanation for so many multiple births? And why do some historians remain skeptical even today? In the next part, we'll explore what modern science says about repeated twin, triplet, and quadruplet pregnancies, why experts continue to debate this remarkable story, and how this centuries-old record eventually became known around the world. At this point, you might be wondering whether a story like this could actually be true. After all, even in the modern world, most people never meet someone who has given birth to triplets or quadruplets. So how could one woman reportedly experience multiple births again and again over the course of her life? To answer that question, we need to separate two things. Asterisk, what history records, and asterisk, what modern science considers possible. The two don't always perfectly match, and that's exactly why the story of Valentina Vasilyeva continues to spark debate centuries later. Let's begin with the science. Every pregnancy starts when an egg is fertilized. In most cases, a woman releases only one egg during a menstrual cycle, which leads to the birth of a single baby. Twins can happen in two different ways. Identical twins develop when one fertilized egg splits into two embryos. Fraternal twins occur when two separate eggs are released and fertilized at the same time. While twins are uncommon, they are certainly not impossible. In fact, millions of twins have been born throughout history. Triplets and quadruplets, however, are much rarer. Naturally occurring triplets happen only in a small percentage of pregnancies, and naturally conceived quadruplets are even less common. Today, doctors often associate higher-order multiple births with fertility treatments. But those treatments obviously did not exist in the 18th century, so how could someone repeatedly have multiple births without modern medicine? One possible explanation involves a condition known as Astaruk's hyperovulation. This is when a woman's body releases more than one egg during a single cycle. Women with this tendency have a higher chance of having fraternal twins. In rare cases, releasing several eggs at once could also increase the possibility of triplets or even more babies if multiple eggs are fertilized. Even so, experts agree that the sequence of pregnancies described in the historical records would be extraordinarily unusual. That is why historians continue asking important questions. Were all the reported births documented accurately? Were some numbers exaggerated as the story was passed from one generation to another? Or did an exceptionally rare biological event truly occur? Unfortunately, finding definite answers is difficult, because these events were said to have happened more than 2.5 centuries ago. Unlike today, there were no birth certificates stored in digital databases, no hospital records, and no DNA testing. Information was preserved through church records, government documents, letters, and written reports. While many of these sources were carefully maintained, historians know that records from that period can sometimes contain mistakes or inconsistencies. This uncertainty doesn't automatically mean the story is false. It simply means that modern researchers must evaluate the evidence carefully, instead of accepting every historical claim without question. Interestingly, the story continued to appear in historical publications long after the family's lifetime. As researchers uncovered references from different periods, the remarkable account spread beyond Russia, and eventually became known around the world. Its global popularity grew even further when Guinness World Records recognized Valentina Vasilyeva as the most prolific mother in history, based on the historical sources available. At the same time, Guinness also notes that the claim relies on centuries-old documentation rather than evidence that can be independently verified by modern standards. That distinction is important. Recognition based on historical records is not the same as scientific proof. Instead, it reflects the strongest documented historical claim currently available. Medical experts have also weighed in over the years. Some doctors point out that repeated healthy multiple pregnancies would place enormous physical demands on the mother's body. Pregnancy requires increased nutrition, energy, and recovery time. Experiencing that process more than 24 times would be incredibly challenging even with today's healthcare. Others acknowledge that while the odds are exceptionally low, Rare biological events do happen. Medicine occasionally encounters individuals with characteristics so uncommon that they completely surprise researchers. History is filled with examples of people who accomplished things once believed impossible. The debate surrounding Valentina Vassilieva reminds us of an important lesson. Extraordinary stories deserve both curiosity and careful investigation. We shouldn't dismiss remarkable claims simply because they sound unbelievable, but we also shouldn't accept them without examining the available evidence. Whether every reported detail is perfectly accurate or not, the story has achieved something few historical accounts ever manage. It continues to inspire discussion hundreds of years after the events supposedly took place. Every generation asks the same questions. Could this really have happened? How did one family become so extraordinary? And what other incredible stories remain hidden in the pages of history, waiting to be rediscovered? In the final part, we'll look at the lasting legacy of this remarkable story, why people are still fascinated by it today, and what we can learn from one of history's most extraordinary and most debated family records. After hearing this incredible story, one question still remains. Why does the tale of Valentina Vassilieva continue to fascinate people more than 250 years later? The answer is simple. Human beings have always been captivated by records that seem to push the limits of what is possible. Whether it's the fastest runner, the tallest person, the deepest ocean dive, or the largest family ever recorded, stories like these remind us that the world is full of extraordinary scents. But unlike many modern world records, this one comes from a time when cameras didn't exist, newspapers were limited, and detailed medical records were rare. That mystery is exactly what keeps people talking. Imagine living in a small Russian village during the 1700s. News traveled slowly, mostly by travelers, merchants, and handwritten letters. If a family truly welcomed dozens of children through repeated multiple births, the story would have spread quickly. People from nearby villages would have visited just to witness the incredible family with their own eyes. For many, it would have seemed like something almost beyond belief. As the years passed, the family's story survived through historical documents and written accounts. Eventually, researchers studying unusual events came across those records, bringing the story back into the public eye. Later, Guinness World Records listed Valentina Vassilieva as the most prolific mother in history based on the historical evidence available. Even with that recognition, many historians continue to remind us that records from the 18th century cannot always be verified with complete certainty. That's why responsible storytellers present this remarkable account as a historical claim supported by old records rather than an unquestionable scientific fact. And perhaps that's the most interesting part of all. History isn't only about finding perfect answers. Sometimes it's about exploring remarkable stories, comparing evidence, and understanding how people lived in different times. Think about the incredible determination required, if even part of this story is true. A mother facing pregnancy again and again. A father working tirelessly to support an ever-growing household, children helping raise younger brothers and sisters, a family surviving without electricity, modern medicine, supermarkets, or the comforts we often take for granted today. Whether the final number was exactly 69 children or whether some details changed over time, the story highlights the strength, resilience, and challenges of families living centuries ago. It also reminds us how much the world has changed. Today, doctors can monitor pregnancies with ultrasound machines, perform life-saving surgeries, and provide specialized care for premature babies. Mothers have access to medical advice, proper nutrition, and healthcare that people in the 18th century could only dream about. Looking back at stories like this helps us appreciate the incredible progress medicine has made. At the same time, stories from the past encourage us to remain curious. Every historical mystery invites us to ask questions, examine evidence, and learn more about the people who came before us. So, was Valentina Vassilieva truly the mother of 69 children? Based on the historical records available, many organizations, including Guinness World Records, have recognized her as holding that remarkable title. However, because the events occurred centuries ago, some historians remain cautious and believe absolute verification is impossible. Both perspectives are worth considering, and that's what makes this story so fascinating. Sometimes, history isn't simply black and white. It's a collection of documents, memories, discoveries, and debates that continue to evolve as researchers uncover new information. One thing is certain: very few stories have captured the world's imagination the way this one has. Generation after generation, people continue reading about this extraordinary family, discussing the astonishing numbers and wondering whether they have just learned the greatest childbirth story ever recorded. Now we'd love to hear your opinion. Do you believe the historical records tell the complete truth? Or do you think the story may have grown larger over time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Respectful discussions often uncover fascinating ideas and different perspectives. If you enjoyed exploring this unbelievable historical mystery, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another incredible world record, historical mystery, or unbelievable true story. Every week, we dive into amazing events that challenge what we think is possible. Thank you for watching, and remember, history is filled with stories that seem impossible, until you discover the evidence behind them. We'll see you in the next video.